The timeless Shahrazad's Magic Reborn. A modern reimagining of 1001 Nights. Freehand rewrite by Dr. Moha Haq. Preface. 1001 Nights has long been revered as a treasury of intrigue, mystique, and vibrant imagination. Its kaleidoscope of narratives, woven together through the timeless frame story of Shahrazad, has spanned centuries, leaving an indelible mark on global literature. With steadfast admiration for the original work, my aim is not to replace it, but rather to present its tales in a language that resonates with today's readers. In my retelling, I have striven to strike a delicate balance between accessibility and the preservation of the rich cultural tapestry that makes this collection so extraordinary. While embracing a modern tone, I have meticulously preserved the core themes, values, and moral lessons that lie at the heart of these tales, an invitation to explore the depths of human nature, confront life's challenges, and celebrate the triumphs of love, courage, and wisdom. To achieve this nuanced adaptation, I have worked diligently to capture the spirit of each tale while finding ways to make them more relatable to contemporary sensibilities. Throughout this process, I have been mindful of the shifting cultural landscape and have addressed sensitive aspects of the original text with care, ensuring that my rendition respects diverse perspectives and aligns with the evolving values of our time. As you embark on this literary endeavor, embrace the wonder and behold the sheer breadth of narratives that lie within. Allow yourself to be transported to faraway lands, transcend time itself, and lose yourself in the captivating tales spun by Shahrazad. From the breathtaking adventures of Ali Baba and Aladdin to the mesmerizing tales of love, devotion, and trickery, there is magic aplenty to discover. May this modern rewriting of 1001 Nights be a gateway that beckons you into the depths of an ancient realm, yet one that feels surprisingly relevant and refreshingly familiar. Immerse yourself in the enchanting tapestry of stories, and may they ignite your imagination, spark poignant introspection, and remind you of the profound power inherent in storytelling, the power to transcend boundaries, inspire change, and connect us all through the shared tapestry of our human experience. Enter this wondrous world, dear reader, and revel in the treasure trove of 1001 Nights, where the allure of ancient lore meets the spirit of contemporary storytelling. Best wishes. Dr. Moha Haq, King Shahryar and King Shahzaman. The mighty Sassanid king, who ruled over a vast territory from Rome to China, suddenly fell ill and died amid everyone's astonishment. One knew whether the king had made a will or appointed a successor. The mourners were waiting for the arrival of two princes, each of whom ruled a part of the kingdom, and worried about which of the two brothers, and how he would wear the royal crown. Finally, the wait was over. The elder brother, Prince Shahryar, entered the western gate, and the younger brother, Prince Shahzaman, entered the capital through the eastern gate. When the two brothers met, they embraced each other and wept for a long time in mourning for their father. 40 days of royal mourning were held according to the custom of that time and land, days full of anxiety and fear that there might be a war between the two brothers over the father's succession. The people would be reduced to ashes in the fire of the elder's desire for power. When the 41st day arrived, everyone knew that the king had no will, so the elders and the people of the city gathered to see which brother would be crowned. At this time, the palace doors were opened and Shahzaman, the younger brother, came out of the palace with a royal crown on his head. What happened? Was Shahryar killed? Those people had heard the story of many kings whose hands were stained with their brother's blood, but suddenly Shahryar's voice broke the heavy silence and all heads turned towards the palace. The older brother was standing on the porch of the palace with a royal crown on his head, and wished his brother health and a smooth journey. The two princes had brotherly divided the kingdom between them, and Shahryar had settled in the capital out of respect for being older. Time passed and each king in his own country was so engrossed in the issues and problems of the country that the two brothers did not see each other for 20 years. This was the path of their lives until King Shahryar, who missed his brother very much, ordered his minister to go to King Shahzaman and deliver the message of his longing and invitation to his brother. The minister obeyed and quickly moved toward King Shahzaman. King Shahzaman was thrilled with his message because he too missed his brother a lot. He ordered his minister to prepare a precious gift for King Shahryar. Then he left his minister in charge for the time he was away and returned to his territory. They had traveled a short distance when King Shah-Zaman remembered his brother's precious gift. As the value of this jewel was so high that he could be tempted to take it and run away, he had no choice but to instruct his companions to halt. Then he returned to the palace to receive the gift. When he entered his room, he saw his wife in bed in the arms of a strange man. Seeing this sight, the world turned dark in front of him. He drew his sword and killed them both on the spot. Then he took the precious gift and headed back, ordering his camp to leave. He did not rest for a moment on the way until he reached his brother's city. Upon approaching his brother, he was happy to see the city decorated for his arrival. He greeted him and wished him well. King Shahryar noticed his brother's sadness upon seeing him and thought it might be due to him being away from his city. But a week passed and King Shah-Zaman's mood did not change. So, King Shahryar arranged an exciting hunt to change his brother's mood. However, King Shah-Zaman did not find peace after his wife's betrayal. His grief was so severe that he apologized to his brother and said he preferred to rest in the palace. Seeing his brother's tiredness and sick condition, King Shahryar urged him to share his problem with him. King Shah-Zaman replied, "Brother, my pain is from my heart, and I am unable to tell you about it now. You continue hunting and don't worry about me." King Shahryar did not insist on more than that and began hunting. The palace's large windows had a beautiful view of the garden. King Shah-Zaman stood by the window, thinking about his brother's garden and land. In his heart, he also thought about his unfaithful wife, who had poisoned even the sweetness of his brother's visit to him. Suddenly, the palace door opened. 20 women entered with 20 men, and the king's wife was among them. They walked there in all their shining beauty. When they reached the fountain pool, they all got down and entered the pool. The queen was in someone's arms every moment, and this story continued until sunset. Seeing this scene, King Shah-Zaman said to himself, "I swear to God, my misfortune is lighter than my brother's." Therefore, he ceased to grieve and said to himself, "Truly, this is more terrible than all that has befallen me." And from that moment on, he started drinking and eating again. Meanwhile, his brother came back from hunting, and they hugged each other. King Shahryar saw that his brother Shah-Zaman's condition had improved. He also noticed that Shah-Zaman, who had been eating very bare food and even water during this time, was now eating his food with more appetite. So, he was surprised and asked for an explanation. Shah-Zaman replied, "Listen, I will tell you the reason for my former paleness. When you sent your minister to visit me, I hurriedly left my city because of your excitement. But then I remembered that I had forgotten the gift I had prepared for you in the palace. I returned and saw my wife having sex with a stranger in our bed. I killed them both and walked towards you. My heart broke under the weight of this sadness, hoping to get better with time by your side and seeing your happiness. This was the cause of my depressed mood and depression upon my arrival here." King Shahryar said, "Brother, it is true that I have been away from you for a long time, but not so much that I don't know that your condition has not improved, but something worse has caused you to skip the first case." King Shah-Zaman regrettably said, "You are telling the truth. It is a pity that you are telling the truth." So, King Shah-Zaman told him everything he had seen. King Shahryar was astonished and silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "I must see this with my own eyes first." His brother replied, "So, pretend that you are going out hunting again, but instead, hide with me so that you can witness this sight and see its truth." Immediately, the king announced his departure through a public cruiser, and the soldiers left the city in their tents. The king also stepped out and settled into his tent, saying to his young guard, "Let no one enter." Then he disguised himself and made his way back to the palace. As soon as he entered, he waited by the window overlooking the garden. An hour passed before that group of men and women entered the garden and did what King Shah-Zaman had said. This situation continued until sunset. King Shahryar was very disappointed by this. He gave everything to his wife, but most importantly, his heart. In the days when kings had harems, he had not broken this woman's heart by bringing another woman to his house. However, this woman's response to all his affections was a betrayal. So, he turned to his brother, King Shahrzad, and said, "Let's go from here and search for our true destiny, or find someone who has suffered the same fate as us if such a person is found. Staying in this palace, with its poisoned air full of betrayal and lies, is worse than death for me." His brother, who understood him well, gave him a positive answer. Both stepped out through the secret door of the palace and traveled day and night. They walked during the day and rested under a tree or bush at night. On a part of the path, they found no trees, water, or signs of life for 3 days. After 3 days, they reached a tree in a small meadow near Salt Lake. In this meadow, there was a spring of fresh water from which they drank and rested. Legend says that 2 brothers were resting under a tree when they saw a huge creature walking across the plain towards Salt Lake. The creature disappeared into the lake in front of their astonished eyes. The 2 kings did not say a word about what they saw because they thought they were hallucinating from exhaustion. So that night, they rested under the same tree while one of the 2 brothers watched at any time of the night. Before sunrise, the 2 brothers performed their morning prayer when they heard a strange sound coming from the lake. The 2 quickly hid under the tree and among the bushes. The same gigantic creature came out of the lake and walked towards the plain with long steps. This was no longer an illusion, and the brothers could not leave without knowing the mystery of this event happening on their territory. So, when they were sure the strange creature had gone away, they approached the lake very carefully. They followed exactly the way they had seen the creature go. The brothers walked apart so that if the lake salt swallowed one, the other could save him. After a short journey, they saw a floating object that could not be seen from the lakeshore. King Shahrzad lifted the floating object, and a hatch appeared under the brothers' feet, as if that object were the handle of this door. The brothers took their swords and entered the exposed corridor. The corridor was dark, smelly, and empty of nothing. At the end of it, there was an iron door with many locks. On the one hand, there might be a creature behind this door more terrifying than the previous one, and their lives would be in danger. On the other hand, the 2 kings were so brave that they could not leave without knowing the truth. The 2 brothers simultaneously drew their swords, which were made of tempered steel and could easily break iron. They broke all the locks with one blow and charged into the room with all their might. But what was waiting for them behind the door, contrary to their imagination, was a woman as beautiful as heaven, captured in shackles. The woman stared at the 2 in silence for a few moments, but suddenly she spoke in a voice as sweet as a canary's song and said, "May God's peace and blessings be upon you 2 kings, Shahrzad and Shahrzad." This story became more and more strange for the 2 brothers until Shahrzad asked hesitantly, "Woman, who are you, and what have you done to deserve such punishment?" The woman smiled bitterly and said, "I give you the right not to recognize me because I have been in this prison for many years, and I have not served 2 magnificent kings. I am Shahrzad, the fairy of this lake, whose presence sweetens the water. I was caught in this prison because of the jealousy of one of my kind. If you 2 mighty kings show me kindness and set me free, this lake will become sweet again. This dead plain, whose dry soil is the food of my jailer, will become green again." The 2 brothers immediately freed Shahrzad, and she disappeared in seconds. The brothers, who were still surprised, came out of that corridor and were about to resume their journey. Before the brothers were far away, the beautiful fairy, Shahrzad, reappeared and said, "My lords, I know your story, and I inform you that there are others who are treacherous women. I have experienced worse than what has happened to you, which I may tell you one day, but for now, you must return to your land before your green territory becomes as dry and desolate as the area around this salt lake. You did not know that whenever either of us women desires something, nothing can prevent her from pursuing it. And as the poet said, when they want love, they come up with the most beautiful words to break hearts, and when they want to go, they look for the least excuses to break hearts." At these words, the brothers marveled even to the limits of marveling. They said to each other, "If this is a fairy, and despite her power, much more terrible things have happened to her, a woman herself, of her kind, it is an adventure that ought to console us." They left the fairy and returned to their city. When King Shahrzad entered his palace, he ordered the executioner to execute his wife and all the men and women with her. Then he ordered his minister to bring him a young girl every night. He married a girl every evening, took her to bed with him at night, and handed her over to the executioner the next morning to be executed. When the people of that territory heard the king's order, they expressed their sorrow for the wife's betrayal of this powerful and kind king. But they, who remembered the king's kindness, said, "The king is angry now, and we do not believe he would commit such a crime." No one even imagined that the king would hand over the beautiful maidens of his kingdom to the executioner, one after another, with complete cruelty. It didn't take long for that pleasant and happy land to turn into sadness and despair. Anyone who protested was immediately executed. The whole city mourned. Crying could be heard in every house. Anyone who had a young daughter at home would leave all of his possessions and let his daughter run away at night. Women are the soul of society, and what will be left of a society whose soul is killed like this? The unfortunate minister was burdened by the crime in which he was forced to participate. With the fear of the day when he could no longer find a bride for the king, he made an intense and secret effort to spare his daughters from this fate. The minister had 2 daughters who, in matters of beauty, charm, brilliance, perfection, and delicate taste, were each unrivaled, save the other. The elder was Shahrazad, and the younger was Dunyazad. Shahrazad had read the books, the annals, and the legends of old kings, along with the histories of past peoples. Also, she was credited with possessing 1,000 books of stories told by the people, the kings, and the poets of bygone ages and past times. She was sweetly eloquent in speech, and listening to her was like music. On one of these sad days, the minister returned home more heartbroken than ever. The girl he had sent to the king's bed tonight had no idea of the terrible fate that awaited her. She went to the king happy to become a queen. Upon entering the house, the minister noticed that the whole house was full of big boxes. Seeing her father's surprise, Shahrazad turned to him and said, "Don't worry, dear father. These are my dowries that must be arranged for marriage." The minister asked, confusedly, "Whose marriage?" Shahrazad said with a voice that showed seriousness, "My marriage." The minister was confused. With whom? He could not bear the profound silence of Shahrazad, and he passed out. When the minister regained consciousness after an hour, he saw Shahrazad and Dunyazad sitting worriedly by his bed. He poured all his strength into his voice and said, "I will never let you expose yourself to such danger." Shahrazad did not let the minister finish his speech and said, "I know, father, that you want us to run away, but neither Dunyazad nor I will leave you alone to save our lives. I have seen your pale color and your bent back, and I know that if things continue like this, you will soon die. Dear father, I don't want to kill myself in this marriage. I checked everything very carefully. You must marry me to this king. Whether I live or die, I shall be a ransom for the daughters of this land. I shall be the cause of their deliverance out of the hands of the king." The minister stared intently into his daughter's eyes. He had always boasted of having a daughter who was very wise in the height of her youth and beauty, and now this young woman had risen to save the people of her land. She asked her father not to stand in her way. This woman wanted to freely choose her life path, even if her choice is to sacrifice herself so that the women of her land can live free. The minister closed his eyes as a sign of approval. With profound sadness, the minister prepared the wedding dress for his daughter, Shahrazad, and then told King Shahryar. Meanwhile, Shahrazad instructed her younger sister, "When I was with the king, I will send someone for you. Then, when you come, call me crying. I will come to you from the king's bed, and you must say, 'Tell me, my sister, some of your stories of marvel so that the cursed night may pass pleasantly.' Then I will tell you stories that I hope can save the girls of Persia through these stories." After this, the minister came to take her and took her up with her into the king's presence. The king was overjoyed and ordered the minister to leave them alone. There was something in the look of this girl that was different from the others, but the king didn't want to think about anything but sleeping with her, so he took her to his bed. When he tried to sleep with the girl, He noticed that the girl was slowly crying. The king thought to himself that Shahrazad was crying because of the fear of death, so he said to her with contempt, "What ails you?" She answered, "O great king, know that I have come to your palace and your bed of my own free will, and there is no fear of death in me. And the reason for this involuntary tear that you see on my face is something else. My mother passed away when my little sister was born, and since that day I have been both a sister and a mother to her. And this sweet sister has never been put to sleep at night without me telling her a story. My only request to you, magnificent king, is to bring my sister to the palace so I can tell her one last story." King Shiar stared at Shahrazad's eyes, and when he saw nothing but truth in it, he said to himself, "For the sake of my loyal minister, I will fulfill his daughter's last wish." The king sent for the little sister, who came and threw herself upon Shahrazad's neck and finally crouched down beside the bed. Dunyazad said to Shahrazad, "My dear sister, tell me a story from your wonderful collection so that the sadness of this bitter night will not kill me and I will spend the remaining nights of my life remembering this story." Shahrazad answered, "Gladly and as a duty if the mighty and courteous king permits." When the king heard these words and was unable to sleep, he allowed Shahrazad to tell the story. And Shahrazad started her first story on this first night. And this is how the legend of 1001 Nights began.